Back on HQ, presented by FanDuel, the CFP semis are officially set. On one side, it's Penn State and Notre Dame, and then the Cotton Bowl featuring Texas and Ohio State. Ohio State making a huge statement against Oregon, beating the Ducks by 20 to punch their ticket to the semis. Meanwhile, Texas surviving an absolute thriller against ASU to get to the Cotton Bowl. Now, the last time that Texas beat Ohio, we got to go all the way back to 2008. The Longhorns getting the dub in the Fiesta Bowl over the Buckeyes. But is this Texas team primed to beat the Buckeyes, and even more so than go on and win a national championship? Here's more from Shehan Jeyarajah on how Texas can win a natty.
For Texas to win the national championship, a few things have to happen. First of all, they need to lean on their superstar defense. This is arguably the best defense in all of college football. And when you look at this matchup against Ohio State, it's easily the best defense, and secondary especially, that Ohio State will have played to this point. They've got a Thorpe Award winner in Jahdae Barron on the back end, an All-American safety in Michael Taff as well, and Andrew Makuba is a star after coming over from Clemson. On the offensive side of the ball, though, too, we need to see more growth from this Texas running game. We saw in their first game of the college football playoff when they scored 38 points, it was on the back of their running game. It was on the back of Quintravian Wisner and Jaden Blue. This hasn't been a consistent rushing offense all year, though, and you saw that come to fruition at times during the Arizona State game. So much was put on the passing game, and while this is a solid unit, it's not necessarily one that's built to go out there and win you a lot of games. And the third piece, of course, is going to come down to the quarterback position. It's going to come down to Quinn Ewers. He is a veteran. You got to see that for stretches during the double overtime win against Arizona State, including him checking into a protection and going downfield for what ended up being a game-tying play in the first overtime. But we need to see a mistake-free Quinn Ewers heading into the rest of the college football playoff. It's a tough task, but Texas, along with Ohio State, is probably the best roster remaining in the college football playoff. And if they're able to get past the Buckeyes, it's home free for them to the national championship.
Ohio State quarterback Will Howard enters the semis with extra motivation against Texas. That's because he hasn't forgotten about the last time he played the Longhorns when his K-State Wildcats nearly scored an upset in the 23 regular season. Longhorns that day escaping with a 3-point win at Royal Memorial Stadium.
For me personally, that was the only team I didn't beat when I was in the Big 12. So yeah, there's definitely a personally for me, a little extra motivation there because, I never got the chance to beat these guys, played them 4 years, and they're always a good team, but I don't think none of those games were unwinnable. Last year we lost in overtime and, so definitely excited to get another chance at these guys.
Here's a look at the quarterback matchup that we'll see at the Cotton. Quinn Ewers and Will Howard. We've highlighted the passing touchdowns equaled at 3. Here's our Chip Patterson from the Cover 3 podcast on the Buckeyes' perspective on winning it all.
3 reasons why the Ohio State Buckeyes, college football's hottest team, can finish the job and win the national championship. First, they have the best player remaining in this tournament. And of course, I'm talking about freshman wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, who has been absolutely outstanding when the lights are the brightest. He has 13 catches, 290 yards, and 4 touchdowns in 2 playoff wins, and nobody remaining can be able to impact a game the way that Jeremiah Smith can. He steps up in go-to situations, and he makes the defense panic every single time he's left in a one-on-one scenario. Number 2, we've got a QB and an OC that are in total sync right now. Chip Kelly, the offensive coordinator for the Buckeyes, has taken some time to figure out exactly how he wants to utilize all of these pieces on a super talented roster. And Will Howard, the transfer in from Kansas State, has been a little bit up and down, though mostly very efficient throughout the campaign. But what we've seen from Will Howard in this playoff are 2 of his 3 or 4 best passing performances of the season. The accuracy was dialed in the win against Tennessee. The explosiveness was there in the win against Oregon. And you can tell that Chip Kelly and Will Howard, in the time off between the regular season and the postseason, have gotten on the same page in a way that's very tough to stop. And speaking of getting stops, my number 3 is an experienced and veteran defense that is playing with a chip on its shoulder. You look up and down the Buckeyes defense and you see seniors. You see Jack Sawyer, Cody Simon, JTT, Lathan Ransom, Denzel Burke, many of whom could be playing in the NFL right now but chose to come back. They came back back for a reason to pursue a national championship, and that unique motivational edge is helping Ohio State's defense. So from the wide receiver, the QB, the OC, and that veteran grizzled defense playing with a chip on her shoulder, those are just 3 of the many reasons why Ohio State can win it all.
Thank you, Chip. Well, not all national championship droughts are equal. At least Ohio State and Texas fans have been able to celebrate one this century. In terms of Notre Dame and Penn State, you'd have to go back to the 80s. All 4 head coaches this time around are seeking their first national title and first time ever in the CFP Semi.
Notre Dame taking on Penn State in the Orange Bowl on Thursday night. Penn State cruised to wins over SMU and Boise State, and meanwhile, Notre Dame closed out the regular season on a 10-game win streak, then adding wins over Indiana and Georgia in the CFP. Now, Notre Dame has 2 less days to prep for this game after the Sugar Bowl was postponed from New Year's Day to January 2nd. But can this Notre Dame team, which we know always has high expectations, meet the moment, win a natty, and block out all the noise? Here's more from Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, it's probably louder than this week than it's ever been. And, you know, I think it's human nature to enjoy people saying good things about you. It's human nature. But we've talked all year about being misfits, right? And that's what we have to continue to be. You have to make the choice to either waste time listening to people tell you how good you are or what the past has been, or you're going to put your time into preparing for this opportunity right in front of us. And that's been my message loud and clear. And we all have to make that choice. You know, it's not the initial thought of daydreaming about the past or an uncertain future. It's the second thought that as soon as you start thinking about the past or what somebody's saying about your future that's uncertain, get back in the moment and put the work in that it takes to get the outcome that you want. Like, don't dream about the outcome. Put the work in. The minute you start dreaming about the outcome, put the work in that it takes to get that. And that's a personal challenge for everybody in our program.
Marcus Freeman has had this team putting in the work because he's racking up the wins for Notre Dame. We're getting a look at the most wins in the first 3 seasons as a full-time head coach for the Fighting Irish. Marcus Freeman, he is at the top with 32. So here's more from Richard Johnson making the case for Notre Dame to win it all.
The Notre Dame Fighting Irish can win the national championship because, quite frankly, they've already done the hardest job, which is get the monkey off of their back of beating a major power conference opponent in a major bowl game. It's something they haven't done in over 30 years, but they did it in the Sugar Bowl against the Georgia Bulldogs. The strength of Notre Dame is obviously on offense, the running game, but it's a 2-pronged rushing attack. Not only is it the running backs, of course, Jeremiah Love, the talented back, but it's also Riley Leonard, because Leonard's feet give this offense a completely different dimension on the ground. He's a serious ball toter, and he's able to help Notre Dame get a +1 advantage in the run game against defenses and even the numbers and even gain a numbers advantage. On defense, Notre Dame's anchored by its defensive line. We'll have to watch to see if Howard Cross is able to recover from the injury he sustained in the Sugar Bowl. But if he is, Notre Dame is massive up front with their strength, and they're really good tackling on the edge. The Irish are really good in space. But besides the offense and the defense, there is also the special teams. Notre Dame leads the country in block kicks. They also returned a kickoff for a touchdown against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. They're just really good at situational football. You saw it during the substitution caper where they ran the punt team on, ran them off, brought the offense back on, and drew Georgia off sides to effectively run more clock off at the end, drain the clock, and win the Sugar Bowl. They're really good on 4th down as well. One of the nation's leaders in 4th down conversions. They do not turn the ball over. They're one of the nation's leaders in turnover margins. They just play really good complementary football. They execute, and because of that, they don't beat themselves. And if you don't beat yourself, you got a chance to beat any of the teams remaining in the college football playoff.
Now, it's hard to think that this is the same Notre Dame team that was upset by Northern Illinois back on September 16th. And hey, we heard Marcus Freeman talk about putting in the work, and they have been doing just that since that upset against Northern Illinois, averaging around 40 points per game, and they've gone 12-0 since September 16th. That is good enough for the longest active win streak in FBS.
I know it works in the locker room, but calling Notre Dame misfits, I don't know, doesn't still stick with me, though.
You're right.
Penn State head coach James Franklin is calling for white-out energy from the Nittany Lions fans at the Orange Bowl. Franklin is 2 wins away from a national championship, and up next is a date with Notre Dame here in South Florida. There's still sort of the big game narrative cloud hanging over his head, and the evidence is seen us here. Worst record by a head coach versus AP top 5 opponents. Franklin 1-17 on this list, but those other coaches also pretty good. Let's go cover 3 once again with Tom Fornelli and the Nittany Lions' natty chances.
There are 3 primary reasons why I think Penn State has a real shot to win the national title this year. And the biggest one is a defense that has been causing havoc all season long, led by Abdul Carter, one of the best players in the country. He got dinged up in the last round, but all expectations are that he will be back for the semifinals, which is good news for Penn State because he led the team with 11 sacks and 21.5 tackles for loss. But he's not the only player on this defense that's had an impact as far as putting pressure on the quarterback. Denied Dennis Sutton had 6.5 sacks. Zane Durant had 3. Kobe King had 3. There are a bunch of different guys on this defense who can get the job done, who can get to the quarterback, and that's one of the most important things any defense can do. On the other side of the ball, this is a Penn State offense that, believe it or not, is one of the most explosive in the country. In fact, it's the 2nd most explosive offense remaining in the playoff behind only Ohio State. They ranked 6th nationally passing rate explosiveness at 15.6%, which is a surprise considering they don't have blue chip receivers. What they do have is Mackey Award-winning tight end Tyler Warren, who has helped lead the passing attack with Drew Aller. And they have 2 running backs in Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, who spend the first half wearing defenses down and then in the second half really break for big runs. We see their explosive rush rate rise from 11.5% in the first half to 13.8 in the second half after they've worn the defense down. And finally, what they have going for them, the red zone. They are elite on offense and defense. When they get to the red zone, which they do more often than just about every other team in the country on their possessions, they finish with touchdowns. They're 4.84 points per possession, ranked 17th. And on the other side of the ball, defensively, they're even better. They only allow 3.24 points per red zone possession. That ranks 2nd nationally. Of course, Ohio State ranks 1st, but you can't be the best at everything.
Thank you, Tom. Here's a look at Penn State's most wins in a season. What they're really trying to do is match what 1986 and that team did, winning the Fiesta Bowl, but also winning the national championship under Joe Paterno. James Franklin trying to do it in 2024. Here are the odds to win the national championship. Ohio State minus $1.10. Notre Dame coming in next at 4-1. Texas 10 cents longer, and Penn State 5-1. All of these odds coming from FanDuel.